Welcome to Rock and Roll Fridays, a podcast on musical encounters
Welcome
and
to Rock
life.
and Roll Fridays. I'm so happy to have a guest, and my guest is Marc Singer. Welcome to Rock and Roll Fridays, Marc. And Marc is representing Philadelphia with the Phillies hat, so I assume you're a big Phillies fan, as I am. World Series last year, and they're trying hard to get back this year, right?
Oh yeah, for sure.
So I found Marc on Facebook as I'm always looking for interesting stories and backgrounds. And Marc, you're telling me a little bit offline how you started off in the culinary area, and talk a little bit about your background, where you're from, and kind of how that led to your love of music also.
Okay, yeah, for sure. I'm from Ardmore, essentially. Both my parents were born and raised in Philadelphia. My mom was like West Philly High, and my dad was South Philly High. So I'm very, very mm, acclimated to the area, I guess you would say.
Yeah.
Um, Yeah, and they both loved to cook. I wasn't big into school, and I felt like the culinary direction was appealing to me, and it was an adventure. It's hard work. I learned a lot. I still love to cook, but I don't work in restaurants at the moment,
Yeah.
and I'm trying to keep it that way. But I do still enjoy going out to nice restaurants and having great meals. Mhm.
People that don't or have never worked in restaurants, I've worked in restaurants, don't understand what goes on back there, right? And
No.
there is a chaos and a systematic chaos, right? When you're in the weeds and buried as a chef or as a cook, and the stress is real, and people don't seem to understand what's going on in the back of the house, right?
That's for sure. I mean, it kind of thrives off of pressure, and in the best case scenario, if everyone's prepared and well set, then everything runs smoothly. So, it's just there were things I liked about it for sure, but at one point or another, I just wanted to explore other avenues.
Yeah, yeah. So getting into the music side, I mean, you mentioned you're in the Ardmore area. Music Hall, I mean, is a great Philly venue, and obviously the Philadelphia area has so many venues. What's it about that Ardmore Music Hall in that area that makes it so creative and musically appealing?
Great question. And that one hits home for me. So, the Ardmore Music Hall has essentially been something that has blossomed out of what was the Blockley,
Hmm.
which is a venue that was the Chestnut Cabaret, and also had a tie to Brownies 23 East, I guess, before my
Wow.
time. But yeah, I don't know if you know that, but the Blockley was a great venue at 38th and Chestnut, with a lot of similar bands that come to the Ardmore Music Hall, because Chris Perella was the guy running the show down there. And, long story short, it was really thriving, but something happened, and I'm not the one to ask, but the whole thing got the plug pulled pretty abruptly. People were really upset about that. And fortunately, Chris found a new home to do the same thing, but also evolve it into other things, and even a wider, I would say, array of genres to appeal to, some of the people that came to the Blockley and some of the newer people that were out on the main line. And, you really have everything there. I mean, and, in addition to that, Peter Martin and he have seemed to make a great pairing. And, Peter's apparently always had a dream to own the space. And since he has taken over, he's put a lot of money in, and it's very clear how the venue has just gone to a whole new level.
Yeah, and I think if you're not from this area, right, and there's different venues in each city, and the Ardmore definitely has a smaller, more intimate feel, and the bands that play there, it's really about that small space, and that, right, you almost feel like you're sitting with the band on the stage when you're at a show. You're literally, I mean, I've been to shows there where I could touch the feet of the artist because it's so um small and intimate, and I don't want to say casual, but it's just like they're playing music in a garage and you're right there. Um
Yeah,
And
And
the
that's I think what's so appealing. Not only as a player on stage, but I go there to see shows, and yeah, it's really neat to. I mean, I could tell you at the Blockley, I would constantly cross paths with. Like, I got out of my car and there was Toots Hibbert from Toots and the Maytals,
right.
and I was like, Toots, and we gave each other a hug, and I'll never forget that. But
Yeah,
yeah, it's great.
it's awesome. What is it? I mean, what is it about music that I always ask everyone this question. What's it about music that makes you listen, makes you care, makes you play? Like what is it about about this thing called music that you love?
Another great question. For me personally, and I think it probably hits home on a different level with every human that listens to any music. Um, I was always a listener. I was kind of a casual listener. I listened to what my brothers listened to, which was a lot of classic rock. They were significantly older than me, but
So
one was into.
you were taught what to listen to.
Yeah. Well, it's to an extent, sure. We all are, I guess. My father was pre '60s generation, would listen to more like Tony Bennett's and Sinatra's, and some jazz, and Miles Davis and things. And then my
Yeah.
mom was kind of the Motown era. Loved Smokey Robinson, and she kind of always tried to stay hip with whatever was new. But that was her heyday, was that kind of sound. Sam Cooke, so I always heard that.
You're name dropping some of the classics. So if you were brought up on those, that's amazing, right?
Yeah, it is, and in a lot of ways, it just doesn't get any better than those people.
Well, they could sing, right? That's the thing I think I always, when I talk to musicians, right? You think about the way they recorded, the way they played live, and you think about the technology and the way things are done today or even 10 years ago. Those people had to sing, right? I mean, it was literally their voice, and um, they didn't have the craftsmanship or the technology to make things better per se. You know what I mean? So it's fascinating.
Yes, yes, for sure. And yeah, so and in my path to music, which I play guitar, and I have a tribute to the Allman Brothers and the Grateful Dead that is local, but we've traveled. We've done 2 trips to Colorado. We've done a trip down to Asheville, North Carolina, and all the way up to Nectar's at one point.
Oh,
So
very cool.
we covered a lot of bases and played a lot of great venues, and we have some great upcoming shows, including our first appearance at Penn's Peak and Jim Thorpe at the
Oh,
end of July 29th.
awesome.
It's a
Awesome.
big one for us. So yeah, I mean, like
And
I
what
mentioned to
is the
you,
name of the band? What's the band name?
Steal Your Peach, Steal Your
Steal Your
Peach.
Peak. Love it.
Yeah,
Love it.
little
Awesome.
homage to both bands.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, which is, it's a long story, but it kind of morphed out of an original band that I had at one time called Old Soul Revival. But Yeah, I mean, in terms of what we were just discussing, I was just going to say, with lack of technology, and that people like, those Motown greats had to rely on their voice. Even earlier than that, because of my exposure to just like, a lot of suburban kids, I guess at that time got, it was classic rock. I was not raised on the blues by any means.
Right.
However, things took on a different meaning of music. I dug a lot deeper into music in around 1995 when I lost my father. That was something that just, had a deep effect on me. And, up until that point, I kind of listened to what my friends were listening to and listened to, some of that stuff I mentioned. But then it made me really want to dig deeper and
Yeah.
kind of say, hey, well, who were the Allman Brothers listening to? You
Hey,
know,
yes, yes.
and then that
Yeah.
took me back to guys like, Robert Johnson and Muddy Waters and Howlin' Wolf. And then, through going out and pursuing my own path to music and playing at blues jams at Warm Daddies, I met people that then exposed me to guys like even earlier, like that I had never heard of, like Mississippi John Hurt, Reverend Gary Davis, Skip James, Charlie Patton.
Yeah.
And that music just had such a healing effect and quality. I I can't even put into words.
Yeah, first of all, you said Warm Daddies, which brings back memories. If people aren't familiar with the Philadelphia venue, Warm Daddies, that was a great venue. And also, I'm a big proponent of finding out the same thing, right? Like, who's the guitar player playing in this band? Do they have solo stuff? Have they played with other bands? And you start to go down this rabbit hole and tree of musicians, and you obviously, like you discover new music. I mean, that's what it comes down to. How do you discover new music? Well, what are the bands and the people that you love listening to, right? Like, I mean, Bob Dylan had a radio show for a while, and he would play artists, and it's like, wow, if Bob Dylan thinks that's good, I better take a listen to that, right? So
Hmm.
that's so amazing and very, very cool. Um, Want to get to, like you mentioned, you probably have a bunch of run-ins, right? And Rock and Roll Fridays is all about the musical story, but tell me about Derek Trucks at Monk's Cafe in Philadelphia, which is a great combo, right? Meeting a great guitar player at a great beer bar, right? Probably the best beer bar in Philadelphia ever. Um, how did that happen? And were you at the show? Were they playing a show, or tell me that story a little bit.
Yeah, not only that, it was his birthday.
Oh, very
Yeah,
awesome. Awesome.
yeah, it was
A
really,
birthday in Philadelphia at Monk's. That's awesome.
yeah, everything about it was pretty cool. Yeah, a good friend of ours, of mine, that was a female vocalist in the Ron Holloway band. Um, if anyone out there doesn't know Ron, they should. But he's pretty active. He's been touring with JGB lately, but he's a old school jazz cat that was in Dizzy Gillespie's band and
Wow.
Gil Scott Heron's band, and
Awesome. Wow.
local to DC area, this guy named Root Boy Slim, who was off the wall, and I'll leave it at that. But you should check him out. Yeah, so Rachel is a singer in Ron's band. We became friendly, and she's from the Baltimore scene, but she's a huge Tedeschi Trucks fan, and she also knows Derek and Susan, and she was at the show, and she's like, "Hey, come for drinks after the show," and I'm like, "Okay."
Yeah.
So and it was the Miriam Theater, which was amazing. I'd never even been in there. Big old historic Philadelphia theater, and it was a great show, as they usually are, and a great sound, and it was just an amazing night. And Monks was around the corner, and I went in with my girlfriend at the time, and we got ushered into like a back room, or they sent us to a back room. I forget. Everyone knows there's like a little private room at Monks,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
they had it. Yeah, they had it closed off, and there was a couple other Philly musicians there I knew, which was neat. Like Freddie Berman, the drummer who toured with Amos Lee for quite a while, and Ross Bellenlaw was there, I think, too. So we said hey, and yeah, I was a little starstruck, I'm not going to lie, but Derek was very cool and just relaxed and sipping on some whiskey himself, and um, you know,
Enjoyed his birthday in Philadelphia. That's awesome.
very awesome. Yeah. Hmm.
What's it? I always say it, like, when you meet people and they're just down to earth and cool and supportive of their fans, that's what it's all about, right? They understand that the fans are what keeps them going, right? I mean, that's at the end of the day, um, my personal experiences and run-ins have always been positive and cool, and makes me like the band and the people even more. And it sounds like that experience at Monks was um, very interesting and very like unique Philly bar experience as well. So great venue, great people. Meeting one of your favorite musicians can't be a bad time in Philly, right?
Yeah, everything was good about it, except we couldn't find my car for a little while after we got out of there. I'm not too sure why. So that was an
that
adventure, but it was great. Yeah.
that either means it was a good night at Monk's, or a bad crime night in Philadelphia, right?
Yeah, you're right. All's well that ends well, right?
Yeah. Well, Mark, I really appreciate the time and the insight, and thanks so much for being on Rock and Roll Fridays.
Not a problem. Thank you.